So I'm back here in 1880 China by Double O Games, and I've just done the first share round, and a few things, people made some decisions that may prove to be, excellent or very poor or somewhere in between. Over here, our first player in the share round, he had the priority marker. He opened this Ningxi Railway. He opened it at 90 a share. He's got 20% stake of it. That allowed him to take a permit for 3 phases, and he took B, C and D. And because it shares railway with the Baocheng, you can see the Baochengs here and here, which is the other railroad, and this one starts here. He's hoping that that will now allow him to build throughout the game a sort of shared track for 2 railways and make cash that way. And of course he's also got the Rocket of China, which he can trade in for a train at some point, so he's now thinking about when he wants to do that. Over here, the Balance Bernie only had enough cash for another share of his own at HKR, which he took. Cautious Charlie had enough cash for another 20% stake in his own railway, the Jingha, as did Payout Pamela here with the Xichang. And the reason to do that for them was with a 40% stake. Obviously it makes paying out when they buy a 2+2 train or more than one, payouts earn them more cash because they've got a bigger stake, and also they're up to a 50% sold, so that their company will receive the extra influx of cash from full capitalization when we hit phase B. And finally over here, Reckless Rachel, 50% of the stake in her Jinghu Railway had already sold. She couldn't buy any more because you can't buy any more until you hit that phase B, which is when the first 3 train has sold. Or is it? Yeah, when the first 3 train is sold, then the 10 shares become available and you fully capitalise. So she had to buy something else. She bought a share of Baocheng, invested in that. It's got 3 2 trains on it. And so she figures, well, and it looks well positioned to make money. On the other hand, it's not reached the point where it's fully capitalised yet, so it may withhold payouts to get some cash, because it's not going to get that 50% extra until it's sold its extra 10% share. So it's not clear that the Baocheng is a great investment opportunity. And I'm not thinking about that. I think she may have been better off going for one of these Jingha or Xichang while a share was available, because they are they are 50% sold, and therefore will get more influx of cash, and are therefore less likely to withhold money to pay for trains, because they're going to get that extra 500 come in to help them buy the trains they need to keep them running. So yeah, that Baocheng share may have been a mistake, because the Baocheng may not be paying out. She may lose money on it. Still, we'll see. So that is the share round, and now priority is with Reckless Rachel for the next share round, because the last person to act was Payout Pamela, who bought 10% stake in the Xichang, and then another 10% stake in the Xichang, leaving priority here. So we are back to operating rounds, starting with the HKR, since the BCR has already gone. So here we go. So we went round some operating rounds here after the share round in 1880. We only got about a couple of operating rounds, because the Jingha bought a 2+2 train, and then the Ningxi, which is the bottom, the last company to operate, bought a 2+2, and then we got another round of operations where payouts ranged from sort of 6 per share to the Jingha maxing at 13 per share. And then, because no one bought the 2+2s, they have just disappeared with the the Ningxi deciding not to buy a 2+2, and they were the last person to buy a train. So we get another share round. But more importantly, the rest of the 2+2s, 3 2+2s that weren't bought, have gone. And so the next person to buy a train, which actually is the Ningxi, they get to continue their turn because they didn't buy a train. They get to continue their turn with the possibility of buying a train, and they will buy a 3, and that will move us into phase B. But first we're going to get a share round, and interestingly, I'm not sure many people have got enough cash. I think only these two. I think Balanced Bernie's got more than enough cash to do something in the share round. He's got 175. Cautious Charlie here has got 115, 119. It's questionable whether actually this guy with Pamela, she has got 82, so she has enough for a Ningxi share should she want it. She might want it actually. So there's some investment decisions to be made by some people, but this will be a quick stock round because very few people have cash to invest or shares they want to sell. So I'll get through this and then we'll be back into some operations, but this is now going to get a bit more tasty because as we move into phase B with the purchase of that 3 train, which the Ningxi will buy, that brings green tiles into play, and that will allow a lot more links and hookups and expansion of the rail network. So places like this that have been blocked will now become open because this tile here will allow a bridge crossover of these 2 sets of tracks. Stuff like this will be able to hook up. Stuff up here will be able to join together, and so we'll see the last of the investors probably linked up to their companies, large amounts of cash moving around because of that, extra shares moving around because of that, payouts because of that, and I think the game will accelerate somewhat at this point. Anyway, I'm pre-playing here, which is not good. So let's play the situation as we've got it, and do some share purchasing for these guys. Here in 1880, then by 00 Games, and after this latest operating round, what's happened is that all the players have now hooked up their first company with their private investor. And so I thought at that point, given that everyone's now had their 50 payout and everyone's got their bonus share from the private investor and so on, it would be worth taking a look on the level playing field that we've got. And every company's had the same number of operating rounds. It'd be worth having a look at the sort of scores to see how the players are doing in terms of their total worth. So down here, Reckless Rachel is up to 750. In here, Payout Pamela with the Xichang Railway, 707, so pretty close. Here, Cautious Charlie with the Jingha, 913 currently in the lead. I should say, I should point out that's the top score at the moment. Here, Balanced Bernie, 765. So 765, 913, 707, 750. So there's 3 in the 700s and 913. And then up here, Train Mad Tony, our first player, way back on 487. That's pretty terrible. So this first player, Train Mad Tony, doing really dismally badly, to be honest, compared with everyone else. So let's see if he can make up the difference. I tend to find that once you start falling behind in these things, you stay behind, but we'll see. Maybe other people make mistakes or make poor decisions, or maybe they're going to start second companies or need to invest in things and make poor choices. But at the moment, his decision to open up that second company is not paying dividends for him. So yeah, 487, 765, 913, 707, 750, and we are in a operating round starting with the Bao Chang, and we'll go Bao Chang, Hukun, Jingha, and then the Xichang, and they were the last people to buy a train. So if no one buys a train, and then the Xichang doesn't, we'll get another share round. Otherwise, we'll keep going in operating rounds. So I've just got to pay out some cash from the private companies, and then we will be looking at the Baocheng and going from there. So here in 1880, you can see quite a lot of track now down on the board. Quite a lot of routes being created all the way up through the board there, and you can see the earnings per share here are climbing quite high as well. The JHU lagging behind on about 20, 25 and 26 for the Hukun Railway, and the Ningxi, which was formed quite late, and then the high earners, the Jingha, just earned 31 per share, the Baocheng 33 per share, and the Xichang is currently the hot ticket with 42 per share. We've hit a sort of interesting situation in that all the companies have all their 3 allowable trains, so no one can buy a train, and not being able to buy a train means that no one can move the phase on. And no one can move the train marker on. So the Jingha Railway has just acted, couldn't buy a train like everyone, and so we're about to hit a share round. And what needs to happen now actually is that someone is going to have to form a new company, which is then going to have to buy a train in order to move the phase on. Otherwise we're just stuck here forever. I should get rid of the 3+3s because they weren't bought, and so they've gone. So we're on to the 4 trains, and players are going to have to now make a choice as to where to go with their investments. So that we're going to be starting with Pamela here, who's got this great Xichang Railway running very profitably with 2 3s and a 3+3 on it. And still with 500 in cash in investment on there. All these companies are really well capitalised. The JHU here still got 800 on it. This guy's got 650. The Hukun Railway here has got 900 on it. The Baocheng's still got 750 on it. Just this Ningxi Railway isn't very well capitalised, and that's because it hasn't sold its 50% stake, and so hasn't got the extra bit of its capital. The other thing to note here is that companies now require 40% of their capital to be 40% of their shares to be sold before they open, and when the 4 train is bought, which will be the moment someone opens a company. Well, no, someone can open a company in this share phase with 30% because a 4 train hasn't been bought yet, but only this person can do that because they will then yeah, it's interesting, because if someone's only sold 30% and a 4 train gets bought, then their company then won't open and they'll just be left with dead stock. So some of the players need to be aware of that. However, everyone has got tons of cash, so you can see again 420 in cash there, 320 there, 520 there, 475, 490, nearly 500 there, and Trainmat only lagging behind here. He's only got 325. He's got into a bit of that sort of dismal spiral where he didn't own enough shares in order to make enough money when he paid out. And just starting to lag quite heavily behind. We saw when I did the count-ups that he was below 500 in value, and other people are up to 900, and they've carried on making lots more money than him. I think he's probably quite significantly behind now. The only thing going for him is this Ningxi Railway. He's got a second railroad set up with a share price at 80 that he can invest in and get a nice high ownership of, without needing to go through the expense of setting up and capitalising a new railroad. So, and it's got track ready for it to run on and so on. So maybe he can make some ground up. Anyway, we're into a share round, and this play here, Payout Pamela, has to look around and make a decision on which new railroad she thinks she can open profitably, and what she's going to set a share price at, and how to capitalise it so that it can run quickly and effectively. So what are our options? Having a look at the board. So the Kunming isn't hooked up. The Wuhan here could place its starting location, and then with another build could probably hook up to something. Similarly with this Nanjing here, but of course you could start something straight out of Beijing, like the JGG. What's that called? That is the Jingguang Railway, and already be hooked into this line that the BCR and the NXR have started. Or similarly, the BZU up there, you could start that and be hooked straight into the network that the JHA has built up there. So there are a couple of pre-made networks, and yeah, the temptation is to jump into one of those and yeah, see how you get on. The JGG looks a little bit dangerous in that some aggressive tokening by pink and blue could block off a lot of your routes, whereas the BZU up there looks like it's got a lot more open track where it's going to be very hard to cut you out, but it's not going to have lots of runs in and out of Beijing. I reckon she's going to go for that BZU anyway. The JHA were hoping to nab it, but tough titties. I think she's going to go for that, and then we'll work out what the others are going to go. I reckon the Jinghu here may then go for the JGG and leave the rest fighting over less than optimal looking route setups. So yeah, there we go. Okay, a lot happened in that stock round, but Reckless Rachel here did not have the capital, not have enough money to start a second corporation, just couldn't find a way that was going to capitalise it to pay for a train and then make enough income from that single train to get onto the next train. Couldn't get up to a 50% stake to fully capitalise the company, and it all looked like an exercise in going bankrupt very quickly. And although she is Reckless Rachel, reckless and stupid are not the same thing. So she decided simply to invest in across her share portfolio, buy some more of her own Jinghu, buy some more Xichang. She's got a 20% stake in that now, which she thinks is pretty safe since it's this person's main money earner. I mean, they could switch all the trains off it and dump it and stuff, but why would you when you've got something running 42 a share just to jape someone who's got a 20% stake? That doesn't make any sense in this game. And she bought a bit of Ningxi, and she's just hoping that some investments pay off and then she can find a railroad to open while other people struggle. Here, the SCR, Payout Pamela was going to open the BZU right up in the north there, then realised that a 40% stake was only going to give her a one-phase permit, and so it would be more sensible to have a railroad closer to the SCR, which could continue building if she got herself in track laying trouble. So she opened this Chen Kung with a B permit, and that's right here down next to her SCR. And although it looks like it's not getting any builds, you know, 2 yellow track, and that can hook up to either French Indochina and start running, or hook up to this city and start running. And so she was reasonably satisfied with that. Started that at 80 because she didn't quite have the money to capitalise it at 50, or to get 50% stake to fully capitalise it at 90. So that's at the bottom of the of the company list here. You can see the red token down there at the top of the 80s. The Jinghua Red here started up the BZU, the Binzhu, which was their plan to get some sort of monopoly on the track right up in the north here. And similarly, he's got the B phase permit, but his JHA Jinghua track railway can build track if required in phase C. And the Hukun here, Balanced Burney, actually decided to open this Jinglan railway out of Beijing, which is the sort of pastel sea blue one on the left hand side of Beijing there. It doesn't look like it's got great prospects maybe, but he's got some track lays that he think will work, so a sharp left from where he is and then a crossover there, and that hooks him down into all this stuff down here, and he reckons he can get some runs coming out of Beijing like that and is willing to run the risk of being aggressively stationed by Train Mad Tony, who's got the Baojiang, the Baoqiang and this Ningxi railway. So the dark blue and pink have got a bit of a stranglehold on this track down here, but he's willing to run that risk to get something going out of Beijing. So everyone expanded their portfolios as well while doing that. So he's got a 50% stake in that. In his Jinglan railway, we've got a 50% stake here, we've got a 50% stake here, people taking these 40% director shares so that they stay within the certificate limits. I'm going to have to do a quick count up to see how close people are, but I can see they're probably on about 10 certificates, and I think the limit in 5-player is 14. In fact, I can see it over here on this rather natty chart. Yeah, there we go, 5-player, 14 certificate limit. So we're back into an operating round. The Jinghua did not buy a train and is still not able to because he's got a maximum trains. So we're running the Xichang and then the Jinghu and then the Ningxi as normal, and then we will be into our new companies, which will then have to buy trains and will therefore move the phase on. So here in 1880, we've just reached the point where the this sort of blue Jinglan railway is set to get its first operating round out of Beijing, and although it's not got any track to run on and so won't be running, it will be buying a 4 train, the first of the 4 trains to be bought. It will have to buy one, and what that's going to do is move us into phase B3 when the first 4 trains bought, and that's going to rust the 2s. It's also going to move us into the communist takeover phase, so there won't be any share price movement. So paying out or withholding payments doesn't move your share price. You can't sell directors, no sale of shares of director. Private companies pay no dividend and foreign investors become inactive. So from, as it says, all the dividend payouts, the abilities of the private companies remain, but they just don't pay dividends. The foreign investors are all inactive anyway because they've all merged with their companies. But what it does mean is that companies needing to withhold dividend payouts in order to accumulate capital can do so without it costing them so much, because it doesn't cost them share price. It does, obviously it means the shareholders aren't making cash, which is a cost, but it means they're not losing that and losing share prices, share value as well. It also means that payouts are less valuable because you get the payout, but you don't get the share price increase as well. So this communist phase is going to be exploitable, I think, by some people who need to capitalise companies. That said, most of these companies look like very cash rich. So the JHU here has got, you can see it's got 800 and something cash on it, although it's got a bunch of 2 trains where they're about to rust. So its finances won't look so great when these 2 trains rust as the 4 is bought. But this, railroad here with 2 3s and a 3+3, the Xichang, which is doing really well, running at 43 per share, has still got over 500 cash on it. This has got a 2 which will rust, 2 plus 2 and a 3 plus 3, but it's got 650 cash on it. This has got a couple of 2s which will rust and a 3 train, but again it's got more than enough money to replace its trains, 900 there. And the Bao Cheng with a couple of 2s that are going to rust and a 3 plus 3 has got 750 to pick up another train or 2 with. And so on. The Ningxi with a 2 that will rust, but also a 2 plus 2 and a 3, and has got 750. And then these newly minted railways, the Jinglan is fully capitalised, so it's got 900. The Binju will be fully capitalised because it's sold 50%, and so we'll have 900 on it. And the Changkung has sold 50%, but is at 80, so we'll have 800 on it. But every single company, plenty of cash, so I think we're going to see lots of payouts, even though we're in the communist phase, as people just try and milk their railroads for as much money as they can. I'm going to do a bit of a tot up when we get to the end of this round of operations, I think, to see what the standings are and see who looks like they're in the best position. But I'm going to round it up here and continue the next video from the start of the communist era as the Jinglan buys its 4 train.